Hi, everyone. Kumar Dattatreyan here. Thank you for joining for another episode of the Meridian Point podcast. Today's guest is Samir Penkar. He's the CEO of Simulation Powered Learning. Samir basically acquired a simulation company in 2019 and transformed it into a platform that's disrupting traditional education. While most classroom learning has 10% retention rates, his simulations achieve 80 to 85% retention. That's amazing. For someone that does a lot of training and coaching, I always am trying to ensure that retention of what the material that I'm covering is pretty high. And so I do a lot of simulations in classrooms, but I'm really curious how you get to 85% retention rates. That's amazing. So from a Java developer to an Agile trainer to educational disruptor, Samir is also tackling preventative health with his RuckFit startup. So we'll be talking about that as well. Welcome, Samir. I'm so happy that you're on the show. Thank you for being here.
Hey, thank you. Thank you, Kumar.
All right, so let's get started. So you acquired Simulation Powered Learning in 2019 when the founder was planning to shut it down, I believe. What did you see that others missed? What was your aha moment, if you will?
In that point in time, PM, project management training, was mostly about instructor-led training. So instructor goes and live either does it, or it was video training where someone
Yeah.
recorded a video and you actually watch it. What I liked about this business was this was based on a simulation. So you actually have to plan a project and execute a project, and you have to deal with the consequences of your decisions. And that
Right.
is where the retention actually comes in. And that's the unique selling proposition that I liked about this business. And that's why I went for it.
Interesting. So, how do you go from 10% retention to 85%? Tell me more about the method, if you will, because that's really disruptive.
Yeah. So if you listen to something, over time you will forget, you'll
Yeah.
retain some part of it. If you read something, maybe there's an incremental retention. But if you actually do something, that is where the real retention comes in.
Mm,
And not only that, if you go one step further, if you make a mistake, you think about a mistake you made, you will remember that mistake very vividly sometimes.
yeah, for
And,
sure.
and that is what really kicks in the learning process. So in our simulations, there are these scenarios that we present to the students and participants where when they fail on those scenarios, they will remember that, and that retention, that I did not manage this risk well, or I did not manage this budget or the conflict well, resulted in my project getting delayed, is a very, very good indicator of how they can retain the knowledge. So it's just not the knowledge. I mean, project management, as you know, is sometimes a very dry subject to sort of go through it. But then to put it into action is where the real action is.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. It resonates with me because the training that I've delivered, where retention has been maybe not 85%, but certainly more than 10%, is where attendees are doing something, right? They're through tools like self-correcting worksheets, meaning they have to fill out something on a worksheet, and they get instant feedback, from me or from their little cohort that they're working with. They tend to retain more and do more with
Mhm.
the learning than, to your point earlier, I was in those classes. I was the one teaching those classes for 2 days or 3 days, whatever, sort of boot camp. You hit them with the fire hose of information, and you hope that they retain some of it, and it just doesn't work.
Oh, we used to have sometimes even 4 or 5 day classes, like boot camps,
Yeah,
right? The whole week.
right.
And people were so exhausted by the time you finished that.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, I was doing that myself. I had a 5-day boot camp for coaching and facilitation. I still do,
Mhm.
but I've shifted that model to more 6 to 8 weeks, where
Mhm. Correct.
there's partial video instruction, and the lecture parts are in video. There are exercises for the cohort to do. Some of them they have to do together, as part of a case study. They have to fill out some surveys and things, which gives them instant feedback. So I think that model is better and certainly more enjoyable for me, and I think it's a better experience for them. I haven't though measured any of the, how much of that they retain. That would be an interesting thing to find out more about. So here's a thought. Professors tell you that your simulations help prevent AI cheating because students just can't plug scenarios into ChatGPT and get the answer. Do you agree with that? Is that how it's designed, sort of?
Yeah, I mean, today no conversation is complete without the mention of AI, right?
Right.
But in this context, it's a very peculiar problem that the professors are facing in colleges, especially when you think about the ways in which the professors try to give real life experience to the students, either there through case studies or internships or even projects that corporates bring in. The last two, which is getting corporate projects and internships, are time consuming, expensive. Not every student gets an opportunity to even do that. So then you come with the case study approach, and today
Mm,
the case study approach is really struggling because of ChatGPT and AI. These students are plugging in these case studies into these tools and getting the output. So the professors are actually struggling, and some of the colleges even have, in the past they should have these plagiarism detectors.
mhm,
You copy this from somewhere else, and now they are trying to figure out, how can I detect that this student did not actually do the work, but they took someone and took the output from ChatGPT.
mm,
So that's the challenge that the professors are facing. The other problem with the professors and the case study approach today is that case studies, if you keep them constant year over year, students
yeah,
are very likely to cheat, and they will ask
yeah.
the previous students and they will get the answers. So there's also the effort for the professors to keep the case studies updated and things like that. So that's what we've heard from the professors, that in our simulations, there's a level of randomness that
Mhm,
comes in, and that
mm.
level of randomness actually throws people off, and you cannot actually predict that randomness in the simulations.
Right. Interesting. So maybe dive a little deeper into that randomness. So does your simulation react to how the students, the attendees respond to certain stimuli, and that creates the randomness, or is it something design? I guess it's part of the design. It would
It,
be,
it,
right?
yeah, I mean, it's at multiple levels, but essentially we have a decision tree. So there are
Mm,
multiple scenarios that you will be presented with a series of cascading decisions that you make. So let's say, you are presented with a scenario whether you want to select either person A or person B to be on your project, and you select person A. That will have a cascading effect on how this person is going to perform and the output of the project.
mm,
Um, so the decisions that you actually take in the simulation is going to impact the output of the simulation. So that's one level of sort of randomness. The second level of randomness is the conditions that we have, and we are adding more and more features to make this more random. Because if you
mm,
run a single run and you try to run a second run, we want to make it more different than different for each student. So in that sense, each student is not getting the same conditions or scenarios.
mm,
It's like a
mhm.
game. It depends
Sure.
on what you do in the game that will detect the output. It is not predefined in some sense.
Interesting. So are you using AI to sort of generate some of these scenarios, or is it more of a plain decision tree and it sort of randomly chooses something?
We have started working on AI to generate the decisions and scenarios on the back end. So
Okay.
that is definitely on our roadmap, and this is also to make it more feature rich for the
Yeah.
instructors. So they have a whole list of scenarios to go after.
Interesting. So you're using AI to combat AI cheating.
On the back end, yes.
It's like a bigger fish eating a smaller fish
That's
or something. I
right.
don't know. All right. So I suppose in this example, AI can both be a problem but also a solution, right, for education. Can you expand on that a bit? You know, how, to me, and before you answer, but to me, it seems like AI, even for students that are using it to cheat, they're learning something, right? And is there a way to test what they learned from using ChatGPT and the answers it gave them to at least reinforce the learning, the little bit of learning that they got to make it maybe a little bit better?
I think that depends on the modality of how you want to assess.
Yeah.
You can give a test at the end of it. Some instructors can ask them to write a paper or a lessons learned after the simulation. That's one thing. I think the best example that sort of I have found recently is the school called Alpha School.
Mm.
And the school is it's a private school focused on trying to uh, present hyper personalized learning to students. And their model is they do instructions only for 2 hours in a day, and for rest of the day the students do projects, teams, and work with other things. Um, so that is the model, and what they have found is, and the way they present this 2 hours content to the students is through a hyper personalized AI tool. So
Mm.
they may learn about geography through the lens of Taylor Swift, the concert that she's had in all over the world.
Yeah.
Things like that, which is very, really hyper personalized to their interest.
Interesting. Yeah, that is fascinating, and I wonder how much of that is creeping into, not creeping in. I wouldn't say creeping, and that's probably not the right word. Permeating the sort of the corporate training landscape. I know you're working with universities, but I see something like that could be super useful for the corporate employee trying to, the training that we have in corporate. I'm a consultant, but I still have to go through some security training and, sexual harassment, all that kind of stuff. And wouldn't it be nice to have that to be a more fun experience? I dread it. I dread the 2 hours that I have to spend watching a bunch of videos.
Yeah.
I try to have the videos go as fast, play them at 2x speed, and then, so I can get to the questions, because I kind of know the answers, and it doesn't really test you anything. It's just sort of this time that you have to spend sitting in this chair and suffering through this training. What are your thoughts there?
In the corporate side, we used to do in the past instructor-led courses for project
Yeah.
management. But now we've sort of shifted that into creating simulations for corporate, which
Mm.
are very specific to their domain and their context of work. A lot of training that you see in the corporate is very generic,
Yeah.
and that generic content does not jive with the policies that you have, or the scenarios that you have, or even the domain that you have in that company. So what we have been trying to do and move away from is, instead of instructor-led and video generic coursing, we are actually customizing our simulations to their context. So
Mm.
it is their roles, their scenarios, their challenges, and their projects. And then
Mm.
when the participants go through that and employees go through that, they can actually relate very well to what's going to happen. This reduces onboarding. This makes the training even very relevant. And of course, because of simulations, it's much more engaging than just watching a video and maybe answering a quiz at the end of it.
Sure. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So are you in the corporate field as well, providing
Yes,
this?
yeah, we do.
Okay.
We do corporate, but now our focus on corporates is to customize the simulations to their context.
Got it. Okay, so you're not just doing university-based training in Agile and project management, but it's also in corporates. I didn't know that. That's great.
Yeah. I mean, we have three segments of customers. One is the universities and corporates. The second
Uh-huh.
is the universities is the first one. Corporates is the second one. And then we have the government sector, where we train project managers in the government
Okay.
agencies.
And you're doing Agile too, right? You're teaching Scrum through simulations.
Yes.
Tell us about that. I mean, that seems like it would be well, any of these would be ripe for simulation, to be able to simulate a scenario, and people have to think about how to solve that issue, that problem. Ideally with a small group of people, almost like using Scrum or Agile or whatever, or project management traditional, to go through the scenarios, the simulations together.
Yeah, Agile is very peculiar, and we have developed an Agile simulation which is based on Scrum.
Mm-hmm.
And in this Agile world, if you look at, let's take a Scrum Master course or a Product Owner course, 2-day, course. In that, there are these small exercises that you do, maybe something around story pointing, maybe something around prioritization and things like that. But these are very disjointed, one-off exercises. What
Mm-hmm.
we have integrated into the simulation is an entire experience of what it is to be an Agile team. So you have to
Mm-hmm.
go through 4 sprints, and the student here in our simulation plays the role of a Scrum Master. They have to go through 4 sprints and deliver a minimal viable product. And
Mm-hmm.
during this entire 4 sprints, they have to go through the entire cycle of, with the sprint planning, the stand-ups, the retrospectives, the backlog refinement, demos, all of those things. And you have a virtual team that you work with.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And when you actually go through these 4 sprints, you get to experience this entire cycle holistically.
Yeah.
It's just a one-off activity, like doing a prioritization activity or even a story pointing is a one-off. We have
Yeah.
those things in a simulation, but they are within the context of how an agile team operates.
No, that's great. I mean, that's exactly how I think it should work, right? I mean, the courses that I've developed, and I don't have the simulation and software that you do, but in the live online and the sort of the video courses that I do, it's all simulated, right? So the attendees, I hope, get a feeling of what it would be like to be on an agile team,
Correct.
working through creating a product and creating a backlog and all of those things. So that definitely resonates with me.
And what happens is sometimes I've seen trainers where they will form teams within the class and
Yeah.
then say, you're the scrum master, you're the product owner, you're the
Mhm.
team, and you kind of simulate that. But what happens is you cannot come up with on the fly scenarios which
Yeah,
are very relevant and has depth which will challenge you.
that's right. You're right about that. I mean, you can only have what's in the class, right? And you would have to design something for every class that's a little different, and even within the class, sort of tailor it to the experience level of the attendees. And I suspect that your simulation is robust enough to do that kind of tailoring or that kind of randomness to make it really effective for them.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive. So you started with Agile, you getting into project. What's on the horizon? It seems like this is an area that's ripe for innovation.
So on our product roadmap, we have more simulations around digital marketing, around construction, healthcare, because these are areas. Construction is a very unique thing. Construction has a lot of technicality. There are so
Mhm.
many factors that affect construction, and it's hard to get hands-on experience on a construction project.
Mm,
Sometimes it's very in terms of duration. These are long projects. Uh, the sites may be not very close, but you still need to get the entire spectrum of what happens in a construction project as a project manager to manage.
mhm.
Uh, Workers, weather, government permits.
Yeah.
There are so many architects, changes late by owners. All these are project management concepts. But when you actually cascade them and surround them with the construction domain, they are a very powerful tool for
Mm,
actually learning. So construction project management, we are working with a professor and trying to develop a construction project management simulation.
interesting. Professor, that's interesting that you're looking at academics to develop this and not industry, like, a professor with maybe some representation from a builder, for instance,
Mhm. Yeah.
is that something you're considering, or you think that the professor will have enough real world sort of relevant experiential knowledge to be able to influence a good simulation?
No, I mean, we are getting input from a number of stakeholders, I would say.
Yeah.
Uh, but this professor that we are working with also has a background, and he was in civil engineering prior to teaching.
Okay.
So he
Okay.
has that background, and then there are other stakeholders that we are working with to get input.
Okay. Okay. That's awesome. Is there a common thread, in terms of picking the industry, if you will, as you expand? Are there some that are more ripe for this type of disruption than others?
I think if you look at sort of the common thread, it is where it is difficult to simulate a real life project for the students.
Mm,
Either it is difficult, or it's time consuming, or it's expensive.
mm-hmm,
Those are the kind of places where the simulations would really work well, and it's hard to do that. We would love if all the students could just job shadow a project manager in a corporate world and see every day what they do, but that's very hard to pull off. um,
yeah.
there are some universities who are trying to bring in sort of corporate to do projects with the students,
Mm-hmm,
but even that, it's hard to match the projects, the timing of the class, and the skill of the students. All of that has to come together at the same time.
yeah.
It's a challenge.
Right. Yeah, I bet. But it sounds like you're up for that. I mean, you're the software that you're building seems robust enough to be able to handle those kinds of things, and especially with the AI capabilities on the roadmap, or maybe already being developed to help you develop the scenarios, or at least flexibility in the scenarios based on how where people are. Um, I'm going to shift on this on RuckFit. So it seems so different, Samir, from the work you do with this educational software company. What is RuckFit, and how did you get into that?
So Ruckfit, in 2019, my mother was detected with triple negative breast cancer.
Mm,
She went through all the surgery, chemo, and she's fine now. And my father has Parkinson's disease, and now
okay.
dementia.
Mm,
And my brother-in-law passed away because he had severe diabetes in his 40s.
mm, mm-hmm,
So all of that sort of culminated and sort of directed me towards looking at preventive health. Why are people getting so sick so early in their lives? And that led me down this path of preventive health.
mm,
And when we explored all the things around preventive health, um, I teamed up with one of my MBA buddies, Jay, and we said, what is it that we can start people off with, which is easy, accessible, and they can integrate this into their daily lives.
mm-hmm,
So Ruckfit was a culmination of that, and
mm,
our first sort of product out of that is a ruck pack. It's a weighted backpack that you put weight in it and walk. Many people walk, but just walking is not enough. You have to load and you have to exert
yeah.
yourself to an extent. So we are actually developing a a, a program around rucking,
Mm,
and also how you walk. The quality of your movement matters too.
mm-hmm,
Especially, if you do see runners, they run marathons, half marathons, even more, but their form is very bad, and
yeah.
at some point they get injured, and these people should not even be running. And so we are developing a program which is focused on rucking, which is focused on biomechanics, so that your movement quality is really um, optimal. And you
And how do you analyze that? Is it take a video? What do you do to analyze their movement, their gait, if you will?
So we have tied up with a company called Kinotech. Kinotech
Mm,
has a scan
mm,
where you just do a overhead squat just
mm-hmm,
through your iPhone, and there are a couple of other exercises you do, and that will detect the quality of your movement. It'll give you a report, and it will detect the imbalances in your body. It will also detect your mobility impairments, and it's a very simple thing because you can do it on your phone. You can do it
sure.
multiple times at home, so you can see whether objectively are you improving in your movement quality.
Yeah. Very interesting. So, It's very attainable too because everyone has a phone. Does it work on Androids as well, or just
Yeah,
iPhone at this point?
Android, iPhone, any phone, any
Okay.
smartphone.
And so you just analyze your movement, and it's going to give you a score, and you can do things to sort of improve it. And that's fascinating.
And it
You're quite
compares
the
your movement to the standards, the orthopedic
yeah.
standards, and so you know how much we are off.
Okay. Is this app live? It's available?
Yeah, yes, it is available. It's through our program. We offer it as part of our package,
Okay.
and that is how we objectively measure.
Mm,
Because we can have you do a number of modalities and exercises, but at the end of the day, if it's not improving your form, you are actually not in a better position.
sure. So I don't know if I have the information for this venture, RuckFit. So please share that with me, and I'll share it in the show notes so that people can learn about. I'm interested. I'd like to be part of it.
Yeah, I'll send you the scan. You can take it, a simple scan. Yeah.
Yeah, because I do a lot of walking, hiking, biking, and stuff.
Mhm.
I'm curious. I know I have some imbalances because I know because my joints tell me that I do. But it'd be good to sort of scientifically validate that in some way.
Definitely.
All right. These ventures are so different. What would you say is the common thread or the common theme between sort of this educational disruption and RuckFit and the sort of the disruption, not disruption really, it's really providing a simple, easy way for people to get fit, right? And
Mhm.
to take preventative measures to improve their health.
Yeah, I mean these are two very different businesses. RuckFit is a B2C business. Simulation powered learning is principally a B2B business. But even with that, there are many common threads. And in fact, when I sort of straddle through these two businesses, there are so many things that cross over. Um, Marketing is a good example. Positioning is important. How we position the products, whether it's to consumer or to the corporate world or a business, it's different. That position is different, is definitely something that straddles both these things. The other thing is your team.
Mm, yeah,
um, in both these cases, you realize how important your team is, and how far they can take you,
yeah.
and how you need to take care of the team
Yeah.
in that sense. And I think lastly, I would say just the infrastructure.
Hmm.
If you stand up one business, the entire infrastructure in terms of everything from accounting to taxes to website, email, IT, all of those things. If you have stood up a business and sort of gone through it, it's just easy to replicate
Yeah.
and share resources that way.
Yeah, that's a great, great answer and sort of analogy for two very different businesses. So my last question, or maybe not my last question, I have a few more, but really it's around your kite flying hobby. So I know kite flying is big, and especially in your part of India.
Mhm.
I used to do it as a child, and when I lived in New Delhi,
Mm.
and um, what lessons from kite flying apply to building companies, or do any? I mean, is there a lesson that you can apply to building a company?
And I think for the audience, we should qualify what kind of kite flying you're talking about
Yeah,
here. This is a competitive kite flying. So if you and me are flying, our goal is to cut the string of the other person so that you lose your kite.
yeah,
That is the level of competition. And of course, I love kite flying. I go to India every year to fly kites. I get them here in the US. But in kite flying, I mean, if you think about, if you ask me what in kite flying can translate into business, it is in kite flying, it's a very competitive world. If your kite is up there, it is up for game. Anyone can come and engage and actually cut your kite.
yeah,
You have to be very alert. You have to look left, right, back, forward. The opponent can come from anywhere. Not only that, you cannot you cannot rest on your last win. If you cut someone else's kite, that doesn't mean that the next person is
yeah,
is so easy or hard. And so that's the same in business. I mean, you cannot rest on the laurels of your last project win. There's so many things that are changing so fast. You have to be constantly alert to actually just stay alive sometimes.
Yeah. I love that analogy. And I should have qualified it. Thank you for doing that. Kite flying is a competitive sport, at least in India it is. And the string is sort of glass, right? So when you're
Glaze
flying
with,
your
yeah,
kite, it
basically.
cuts the others. If you have the right angle and the speed and all that,
Mhm.
it'll cut the other kite flyer string, and their kite is gone, right? So they lose, you win. And I love the analogy of having to be alert and nimble and just aware of your surroundings when you're the surroundings of the kite in a three-dimensional space. And your business is the same way. It's
Mhm.
exists in a three-dimensional, multi-dimensional environment. You know, you've got customers and vendors and suppliers and you name it, right? All of these things have to be balanced. And so
Correct.
I think the lessons are appropriate. All right, so some quick fire questions, and we'll call it a show. Agile or waterfall for kite flying?
Agile.
If you had to simulate one day in your own life for others to learn from, which day would it be and why?
Like a day in a week.
Yeah, maybe.
Probably my Sundays,
Okay.
because I have a lot of free time on Sundays. I
Yeah.
play with my dog, and I get my best ideas on Sundays when
Ah,
my mind is open.
okay. So that would be a good thing for others to simulate. Find time to think, right?
Hmm.
To detach and think, and that's your Sunday. It's your time to detach and think. I love it. Chat GPT or human? Who's better at teaching conflict resolution?
Conflict resolution. I would say for the moment it is human, but you never know how fast ChatGPT is catching up.
Yeah. I have a comment here on LinkedIn. My daughter works for the company that has the best preventative breast cancer diagnostic questionnaire available, and my brother is chief scientist
Oh,
at the Parkinson's Foundation. If those connections might help with your family's health.
oh,
Okay.
sure,
So it's in
definitely.
the comment. Reach out
Oh,
to Adam. He's a friend of mine. I've known him for a long time. So,
okay. Very nice. Thank you.
so say you're creating a simulation for entrepreneurs. What's the first crisis you throw at them?
The first crisis you two of them is entrepreneurship. Well, you don't have any customers who buy your product. Usually people start there. They have
Yeah,
lots of ideas, but no customers. Find
yeah,
your customer and find your who customer niche. That
yeah,
positioning is very important.
yeah. Absolutely. Identifying what your niche is and being able to connect with them at an emotional level. One last one: rucking or running? Which builds better leaders?
Better leaders. I'm thinking because I was a runner, and running taught me a lot of things. But now I've transitioned to rocking. I would say in this case, I think both. I would
Okay.
say both in different ways. Um, rocking, rocking loads your form and actually makes you more aware of how soon you're going to lose your form.
Hmm.
And running really tests your limit
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
endurance.
Great answers. All right, Samir, thank you so much for being here. Do you have any final thoughts or questions, perhaps?
No, I think as you said that question about what's your ideal day, you know, uh, getting free space and free time, I think is important because that what frees up your mind and it allows you to explore and think and project into the future
Mm,
and dream to some extent. So
yeah,
I think the more we can build that into our routines, the better it is. For me, it's my dog because I take him out, and that is my time to do all these things.
yeah, same here. I enjoy my walks with my dog, sometimes dogs, because we frequently dog sit my son's dog. So
So,
he's as much my dog as he is his dog. All right. Well, thanks again for being here. Really fascinating, all the things that you're doing. Quite impressive. And thanks for watching, everyone, and listening. And we'll see you back in the show in another couple of weeks. Bye, all.
Great. Thank you, Kumar.